Welcome everybody to tonight's webinar, live to you from various places around the country and around the world, and we're really pleased to welcome you all here tonight, and especially at such short notice, so that's really, really good. Just to let you all know that we are recording this webinar so that we can edit it and use it later for other people who are not able to attend tonight, so just be mindful of that. As I've said already to people who are early, please use the Q&A function, which you will find as part of the Zoom functionality if you have questions. Some of these questions will be answered online by writing, and some of them we'll talk about and we'll take to the panel at the end. And I think please everybody keep yourselves on mute for the time being, if that's all right, while we go through and do our introductions. So we're going to start our introductions with James.
Thank you, Libby. I'm James Doolan. I'm a trust-wide lead ACP for Barts Health and senior ACP at Whipps Cross ED, and I've just finished my first year of this Resus Masters.
Can you tell people what an ACP is if they're not aware of it, James?
Okay, for those who are not aware, I'm an advanced clinical practitioner. So we're part of a Royal College of Emergency Medicine group of non-medical practitioners who come from a variety of backgrounds. I'm a nurse by background, over 18 years in A&E, all told. But we have ACPs from a physio and paramedic and other allied health professionals background. We completed an MSc in advanced practice, which I did about 8 or 9 years ago.
Great, thank you. My name's Libby Thomas. I'm an emergency medicine consultant in King's College Hospital in South London, and I have a subspecialist interest in medical education. I've been working on this MSc programme since an inception, and I've come in the last year to help work with the whole team looking at introducing simulation and the summer school to the programme, as well as working on student experience and faculty development, and it's great to be with you all tonight.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the Education Administrator. I run this programme and also the Trauma Distance Learning MSCs. I will generally be your port of call for most things. If you email Emergency Med, that's going to be me on the other end of that. And I'm here to support you through your 3 years and leading up to that as well. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Paul Rees. I'm a consultant cardiologist here at Barts Heart Centre in London with an interest in post-resuscitation care and acute cardiac networks. I'm also an air ambulance HEMS consultant at East Anglia. My main interest there, I suppose, is also pushing endovascular resuscitation forwards. I'm the defence lead for endovascular resuscitation as well, and I chair the UK Defence Resus Committee. And with this MSc, I run Module 4, which is essentially the more medical topics module.
My name's Tim Harris, and thank you to our faculty and thank you to James for joining us. I think it's really important to have somebody that's walked the walk and can take questions from somebody who's studying with us. Thank you all for showing your interest, and thank you for sharing our passion for resuscitation. So my name's Tim Harris. I am dialing in currently from Qatar. I divide my time at the moment between Qatar and London. Not nearly enough London time due to COVID, but that's all going to change in a couple of weeks. So my background is in emergency medicine, acute medicine, intensive care medicine, a bit of paediatric medicine and pre-hospital care. I spent a lot of time after I'd got my first consultant ticket doing fellowships, and that's because I wanted to gain expertise in resuscitation, be it for adults, children, as an intensivist, as an anaesthetist, as a pre-hospital practitioner. And the MSc that we run together is really a distillation for people that do not want to spend 6 years or 7 years as I did doing fellowships. So what we're trying to do here is take what we figure are the key skills for resuscitation, and resuscitation might happen on a ward, in the ED, in the cardiology lab, in the back of an ambulance or somebody's living room. And the resuscitationist might be a doctor, a nurse, an ACP, a paramedic, or an advanced paramedic practitioner. We're all here because we want to do that job better. And the whole purpose of this MSc is to give you the fire in your belly and the facts to channel that fire into better patient care. So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about the MSc, and please ask questions either by interrupting on the panel, in which case my colleagues will read them out to me, or at the end. So you are here to learn about the emergency and resuscitation MSc or diploma or PG cert, depending on whether you complete 3, 2 or 1 years, that is a distance learning course at Queen Mary University, London. Could we go to the next slide, please? Why would you want to study emergency medicine resuscitation? Well, I believe, and much more importantly, many people around the world believe, that resuscitation is a subspecialty interest, just like toxicology, just like medical ultrasound, just perhaps as cardiologists may focus their time learning echo or the cath lab or EPS. But resuscitation is a subspecialty of many different specialties, of nursing, of medicine, of paramedic science. And within those, doctors or nurses that have an interest in intensive care or anesthesiology or emergency medicine. We hope that you study with us because you want to become a leader in resuscitation. That might be a leader because you offer excellent care and you offer a standard of care that your colleagues wish to emulate, and that you become somebody that they respect and turn to for advice and guidance. It might be a leader because you want to take a responsibility in running your resus. That might be updating equipment, developing protocols, looking at guidelines. Or that might be teaching. That might be teaching doctors or nurses or simulation teams. Next slide, please. And the faculty. So you've met some of our faculty. The faculty is a diverse group drawn from many specialties with many training backgrounds. Ben Bloom is an academic emergency physician. Tessa Davis of Don't Forget the Bubbles fame is from paediatrics. Paul is from cardiology. Libby is from simulation and emergency medicine. Stephen Thomas is a professor of emergency medicine, previously at Mass General, where he ran the residency, and now with me in Qatar. Dara Wood is from South Africa, where he trained in emergency medicine. Chet is an emergency physician who trained in the UK, but he is also a qualified maxillofacial surgeon and now has an interest in developing world medicine and is currently involved in setting up Tiger Reserve healthcare training. Next slide, please. However, while that's the full-time faculty, we have a fantastic group of accessory faculty that join us for tutorials and offer lectures. In this picture, you can see Professor Reed from Australia, who heads the ADF there. You can see Chris Cabul from Mass General, who's, I think, now one of the most widely published on right ventricular failure and PE. You can see Brian Burns from Life in the Fast Lane and Resus Me. You can see Gareth Davis, who set up London HEMS. You can see Maurizio Ciccioni, who is chairman and head of the European Society of Intensive Care. You can see Mervyn Singer, who is one of the big names in intensive care and surviving sepsis in the UK. You can see Vicky Noble, who heads the ultrasound training programme in Mass General. You can see Scott Weingart from EM Crit, and so on and so on. And I'm not going to name all of the faculty, but the point I'm trying to make here is our faculty is drawn from some very well respected doctors, paramedics and nurses, and lawyers in fact. At the bottom you can see Cheney, who's joined us as our legal expert. Next slide, please. So, who are we looking for? Well, resuscitation is a specialty that crosses doctors, nurses and paramedics. And one of the joys of this course is we study together. We study to the same standard, but we have different entry requirements. Doctors have completed 5 years medical training, so we ask them to have done their intern plus 2 more years basic training. For nurses, we ask you to have 5 years experience and paramedics 5 years experience, although we do make exceptions. Exceptions would be for paramedics that have done at least 3 years in a HEMS system, because quite simply, you guys have got unparalleled experience in critical care. And from time to time, we will allow somebody with less experience where they've got a particular leadership role. For instance, a paramedic may be a senior lecturer or lecturer at a university. A nurse may simply be a senior lecturer, or a paramedic may have worked as a nurse before, or a doctor may have worked as a nurse and therefore want to join us earlier on in their careers. We do ask you all to be proficient in English language, and there is an IELTS requirement that you'll have to take if you were not educated in the UK country. Next slide, please. So we are very proud of our diverse faculty and our diverse students. We have attracted students from many different countries in the world. Some you can see listed here, but we have students from the US, from Canada, and from Australia, in addition to the several countries in Africa and many countries in Europe. We are a mixture of nurses, doctors and paramedics. I am hoping that we will get more nurses as the course matures. As you can see, at the moment, the doctors and paramedics are our largest group. Next slide, please. So, how do we help you reach for the stars of your resuscitation career? So this is a 3-year master's, a 2-year diploma, or a 1-year PG cert. In the first year, we teach you general resuscitation and academic skills. Our first module will teach you how to read papers, how to search the literature, how to analyse the literature. And we'll talk briefly about how you might want to set up a study. We then have 3 modules looking at the general aspects of resuscitation. Number 2, this is the rules of resuscitation and the background pathophysiology. We teach you about the tools, oxygen and fluids. In Module 3, we move on to analgesia, airway care and sedation. Module 4 looks at all of the background medical diseases that lead to somebody having organ failure and leading us to restore oxygen delivery, which of course is what we mean by resuscitation. In year 2, we move on to the specialist areas of resuscitation. We have a module on trauma, a module on diagnostics, a module on toxicology and CBRN, and then we end with a module which is a choice of either paediatric emergency medicine or pre-hospital care. We deliver the content over 8 weeks for each module, and we release 2 to 5 lectures a week. What we expect from you is 12 to 15 hours work each week, of which around 2 or 3 hours we'll be listening to modules, 2 or 3 hours we'll be doing coursework, and the rest of the time we'll be reading. And we have an extensive and carefully thought out reading list to share with you. We will also be running a summer school if COVID allows us to next year, and we would welcome you to come and join us for some days to learn a little bit about pre-hospital care, a little bit about ultrasound, to meet each other, and above all, to do some simulation and put into practice all the skills that we're trying to share with you over the 2 years. Next slide, please. So, and I'm sorry, I got 1 slide ahead of myself there. So this is year 1, year 2, which I've described, and year 3 is a dissertation year. In the dissertation year, you have the opportunity to pick an area of particular interest to you, of course, from the field of resuscitation, and you will go and research that area. That research might be an observational study, a chart notes review, or a systematic review and meta-analysis summarising the literature. In year 3, you will be assigned a personal tutor to supervise your dissertation, as well as your individual tutor, which you're assigned in year 1. And of course, that tutor will match your interest and have expertise in the area that they're supervising you in. Next slide, please. So, educationists tell us that students all learn in different ways, and students are all better assessed in different ways. To try to be fair, we use 3 methods of assessment during the MSc, and each of these methods of assessment is formative as well as summative. We use 1,500-word written assignments. These are to help you develop the skills to write journal articles and express yourself in written form. We have critical appraisals where we will provide a paper of great relevance to the field of resuscitation medicine, and we will ask you to appraise that paper as if you were going to present it to a journal club. And then we have presentations. For some of our modules, we will ask you to present a PowerPoint recorded presentation, which will then be assessed. And that is, of course, because many of you will have teaching as a core skill, and we will have lectures by experts in both writing and giving presentations, and we will give you feedback from our faculty, and hopefully you will learn to do better critical appraisals, better written assignments, and better presentations. Next slide, please. So, Queen Mary University London has a hugely diverse student body. 27,000 students from 160 countries. We sit in East London, which is the heart of London's diversity. You walk our streets and you'll see Bengali culture, Pakistani culture, Indian culture, Jewish culture. You will see French Huguenot weavers' cottages from the 16th century, and you will see the magnificent Barts Health and, of course, the many buildings of Queen Mary University. Queen Mary is a member of the Russell Group. That's the 16 top universities in the UK that set a particular level of academic achievement and standards. We're very proud that we are London's top school for medicine and dentistry this year, and that our research stream is now rated 4th worldwide. We are based in the Blizzard, which is that wonderful building that you can see in the photograph. The Blizzard is a modern design and is unique in that the lower ground floor is a laboratory, and above that we have offices for teaching and offices where we all are based. So it mixes lab medicine with epidemiology with clinical medicine. And what ties us together is an interest in the inflammatory process. Next slide, please. So Barts Health is our paired hospital. Barts Health consists of the Royal London Hospital, which you can see top left, the Old Barts Hospital, which you can see top right, and links through Newham and Whipps Cross. We have a wonderful heritage. Barts Health is the oldest hospital on a single site in Europe and can trace its position on that site back to the end of the 12th century. Right now, we're host of London's Air Ambulance, the largest trauma pre-hospital provider worldwide. We host the London Heart Attack Centre, which is Europe's largest, and we are one of the largest stroke centres. And we also have the largest emergency department research network under one R&D in Europe. It is a wonderful place to work. Next slide, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to come follow your dreams with us. We have a wonderful faculty. We are passionate about what we do. We enjoy delivering this emergency and resuscitation MSc, and it makes us better doctors. We'd love you to come join us, and we hope that what we have to offer will make you better nurses, doctors and paramedics. Better for your patients, but better for yourselves, because you get a richer and more thorough job satisfaction as a consequence of studying. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time. I'm going to hand back over to Libby as chair, and let's see what questions we've got.
Thank you very much, Tim. I'm not on mute, am I? No, good. Hopefully that's piqued all your interest. Before we move, I'm starting to get a couple of questions coming in, which was great, and we'll have a look at those. But we're going to have a quick chat to James, who's kindly joined us. He's one of our students, and we always think it's good to hear from the people who actually take part in these courses and things like that. So James, do you want to just start by telling us, you need to unmute before we start, and tell me, why did you do the MSc?
Well, Libby, I've been in A&E for over 18 years, and I've always enjoyed all streams of A&E, but I've always been drawn to Resus, strangely. The variety, the unexpected, and the challenge of managing these complex and very critically unwell patients from cradle to grave or a variety of ages. So when I became an ACP about 8 or 9 years ago, I sort of wanted to continue my passion with Resus, and this Masters came up, and I looked at it and I thought, how can I develop my skills? Now, an ACP works across all streams in A&E, but I have a fondness still for Resus, and it went with my knowledge to sort of develop and really improve upon my background knowledge and really advance Resus science.
Great, thank you. And how have you found it? What have been your highs and lows? Because
but the low point really is very minimal, but it's working full time within ED. It's a constant learning environment. You constantly learn and evolve as a practitioner. So trying to balance the shift work with the learning. However, they interlink, and I think if you pragmatically look at it, and when you read papers or journals or FOMED online, and you really sort of sink in with the lectures, you can balance the actual work commitments for the masters as well as your work commitments for your employment. The benefits, I mean, there's been a global pandemic which we've all been involved with, and I think fundamentally we've really developed our practices how we manage COVID. You know, we've had to learn very quickly, we've had to learn very fast how to manage these very complex, very critically unwell patients. And this Masters has really given me the ability to evaluate the evidence. And there's a paucity of evidence because it's so new, but really it's enabled us to give goal-directed therapy with the evidence that we have and really sort of improve our patients' care and potentially outcomes.
Great, so that really tells me how it sort of influenced your practice recently. How did you find, without this sort of pandemic, when everybody's been in a different world, what other influences have you found from doing the MSc?
So I mean, I've got a subspecialty interest in ultrasonography. So I'm always pushing the ultrasound cart around, scanning people. And that's come from Professor Harris, really, from his sort of keenness. So I think sort of developing sort of that subset and skills of Resus and not sort of rely on old evidence, rely on new evidence and the challenge and the fluidity and being the tip of a spear, as to say, when it comes to challenging practice.
And just last question, how have you found the interaction with your other colleagues and learning from different specialties, professions within the MSc?
It's been an eye-opener. I know from LAS we have the advanced paramedics, and fundamentally they do a fantastic job, as everyone pre-hospitally does, but the handover is more smooth and more seamless. With my medical colleagues, they see the fact that we work on a parity, as Tim said, everyone, regardless of your professional background, works at the same level for this Masters. And I think the fact that we have this sort of sustained knowledge level we achieve gives you credibility when it comes to a shop floor.
That's brilliant. Thank you, James. And if you've got any other questions for James, then do put them in the Q&A section and we'll come back to them shortly. Thank you. Thank you. Paul, I'm going to hand over to you now briefly just to talk about practical courses and sort of summer school ideas.
Yep. Thanks, Libby. Just bringing my screen up here. Just get that into presenter mode. Okay, so you should now be able to see that. So we have some fantastic resources at QMUL and at the Blizzard Institute, and it was our aim, the knowledge that you can gain from this is phenomenal, and every week that I sit in on the tutorials, I realise I'm learning, despite having done this for a couple of years now, every single time. So there's always something new packaged in there, and the ability that you have in the tutorials is to be able to interact with the faculty, and we encourage as much interaction as possible. People are often quite shy, but actually it's quite a safe environment, and you can type and ask, world-renowned experts to explain something that's been bugging you for years. However, we also have a fantastic practical resource in terms of the faculty, and it's our plan that we should run some sort of summer school content. And we had planned this year to allow you, face-to-face access with these faculty, and also to try and get the very best bits out of them. One of the things we thought about that people seem to like the idea of is point of care ultrasound is almost used everywhere. That's an image of me doing a cardiac ultrasound on an Ebola patient in Africa. We thought we could run a point of care ultrasound hands-on masterclass. I know Tim and I have done something similar in the context of the London Cardiac Arrest Symposium, but to allow you as the people wanting to learn how to pick up tips and tricks hand-on with the experts in the room, so that you can take this back to your clinical practice. And as with all of these things, the more you do it, the better you get. So yes, like Tim might have carted the ultrasound machine around, James, I was certainly always carting the echo machine around. And I think that's the way to get good at things. We thought we might package training for that for our candidates. We also thought we might import something. This is a course we recently run here at East Anglia Air Ambulance Service called SPEAR, Specialist Percutaneous Emergency Aortic Resus. So this starts off with gaining femoral access, so ultrasound guided femoral access for cardiac arrest. We've had some very successful workshops, and we plan to bring those to the MSc as well for those who are interested in learning ultrasound guided emergency access to augment your resuscitation, to manage your aortic blood pressure, and then maybe use other resuscitation adjuncts. These are some further images. We've also developed that course to be a bit more interactive. So with an actual simulated cardiac arrest, you practice real time getting femoral access, and we plan to bring this to any summer school program. And this is modeled, some of this, on our military REBOA, so resuscitative balloon occlusion of the aorta program. So using balloons to control hemorrhage. It's currently used in London by London Air Ambulance as a hemorrhage control tool. And in some hospital settings, we've recently rolled that out with the military. So we plan to run a similar workshop to that as well. And going forward, we could bring, this is some group teaching I recently did in the States. We'd aim to emulate that using a cadaveric platform. So that's a cadaver in the middle there. But we have access to all of those resources in the UK, and I'd like to try and bring those to the MSc as well. More advanced resuscitation. This is a workshop I ran in Moscow, and again we could do something similar in London. This is using ECPR, so extracorporeal cardiopulmonary resuscitation. If pumping the blood around with your hands isn't doing the job, then you can put a patient on a machine and put them on artificial circulation. And these are all things that we could set up and we would hope to be able to run. And that's a shot from Paris at their pre-hospital ECMO service. The aim is to bring training to you guys that will allow us to enhance the resuscitation care that we're able to give. So that's our aim with summer schools, looking at endovascular resuscitation and ultrasound and some of the practical things that we could teach you, as well as the educational component. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was really great. And wow, I think I got so much to learn, which is just amazing. So I'm going to come to some of the questions and things, just to summarise a couple of things that have been said already. The summer school will not be compulsory, but it will be open to MSc students as a first basis, and that will be primarily for them. But as we move forwards into the future, we're looking to develop more of these courses that can be expanded out to other attendees. And the idea is that you won't be disadvantaged in your future modules if you haven't been to the summer school, but it's just a great opportunity we do want to offer. And we know from the Trauma Sciences MSc that's been running for 10 years, that people seem to make friends for life when they come on the summer school and make really great international connections that help them in their work going forwards. The online tutorials are an hour a week at the moment, and they always happen on a Thursday, and they're either at 11 AM or 1 PM UK time, so that they're set depending on which year of the MSc you're in, so that you can plan your work around those and try and plan your shifts around that. A couple of other questions that have been answered is that yes, you can do either a PG cert in year 1, year 2. If you complete year 2, that counts as a PG dip, and then you can progress on to the masters in year 3. But if you want to, you can take a break of up to a total of 2 years during the program, but that has to be negotiated with the program team. Is that right, Chris? That's what you wrote? Yeah, your face. And we do expect about 15 hours a week commitment in terms of watching the lectures, reading through the additional materials, preparing for the tutorial, thinking about tutorial afterwards. And this is standard for any masters, and we recognize that's full on to do, but that's what the kind of the expectation is about it. So I've got a couple of questions I'm going to ask the team here. So Tim, question for you: what types of dissertation can be done, e.g. systematic reviews, etc.?
I think Tim may have just had to go because he's got a cardiac. I've just got out of one, and he's going to have to go to cardiac arrest. So I think okay. he may have vanished. But
so the dissertations, I can answer that question. The answer is it's any type of. You can do something. You've got to be able to fit it in within the time period, and that's the key thing. So you can't go and do a massive trial. but you can do a systematic review, or you can do a small study of your own, and this can be a small cohort study, or it can be a small pilot of something, and we have a wide variety of things that happen. We have a great, Steve Thomas supervises the dissertations, and there's materials that are delivered during year 2 to help you prepare for the dissertation, to start thinking about what your different options are there. James, I wonder if you can answer this question, if you've had chats with other people, but how have people in training found it balancing the workload with their other commitments?
My point of view, I have a management day each week, which has been convenient. So I've tempered it around the Thursday lecture, so I sort of can concentrate on studying that day. But in between that, I sort of just take some downtime to read up and listen to podcasts and get some work on the studying aspect. From the medical point of view, we had a clinical fellow who managed to get some time off, but he found it slightly harder. I can't speak from a medical perspective in sense of a doctor's training, in sense of being released. But from my point of view, I negotiated with my line manager and was given time off. That was part of the deal that I struck. But from a medical point of view, sometimes I need to speak to their clinical educator or supervisor.
There's definitely an advantage if you can combine it with less than full-time training, but that's not a must, and sometimes it just takes having very forgiving colleagues who will swap shifts with you. You don't have to attend every tutorial, and they are all recorded. So obviously there's nights and things when you're not going to want to get up in the middle of the day in order to attend, but so we have the flexibility in that system, and Chris monitors, there is a minimum attendance or for viewing the tutorials to make sure there is engagement in the program. Yes, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the dissertation topic as well. Now, as a tutor, I try and find stuff that I think you're going to be able to publish. So if you're coming on the course, you're going to spend all that time doing a dissertation. I want something that we can get you practiced. So part of the point of having you doing presentations is so you can send your stuff to international meetings and be confident enough to take it along and stand up and present it in the time frame allowed. And ideally, we want you to be able to turn this into, you've done all the work to make a dissertation, we want you to be able to publish it somewhere. So we try and make it relevant. We try and make something that you can build your CV, so you get the experience of presenting it, you get the experience of writing it, and then you actually get something back for it. So we try and make it useful rather than just esoteric. And there was another question I wanted to answer. Somebody's already answered it brilliantly, but somebody's saying they work in a rural DGH. Is this going to be the right program for them? Absolutely. You know, this will really build your knowledge levels. It will allow you to lead if you think your unit needs a bit of help leading it to improve it, this will give you the knowledge and the enthusiasm to hopefully infect your colleagues with and be able to do that. But yeah, that's all I had to say on that, but thank you.
Somebody has asked how this MSc program is different from a clinical fellowship in Resus. Paul, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So, well, we have a couple. So the clinical fellows who've joined, who actually some of them are on the call tonight, aren't they? So this was offered as part of a program for some of the hospitals in East London as part of their training package. So the clinical fellowship, they'll be working in clinical jobs, but they'll also be enrolled in the MSc program. I think that's what you might mean. A normal clinical fellowship in the emergency department would be just that, a clinical job, maybe some time to go and learn. But the term clinical fellow could be any number of things. The resuscitation fellows that are affiliated with this program are doing a clinical job and have time allocated in their program to study this. And my lights have gone off. And the program is funded for them. So that's a slightly different clinical program allied to the MSc program. I think I'm correct with that. Is that right, Libby?
Yeah, that's right. So it's something you do. The fellowship is very much a practical thing, but you get given a bit of time for studying, and so therefore you can do this in alignment. And the two are designed to go side by side. Question for James. James, do we need to have a logbook for the essential procedures done at our working centres?
I got a logbook for my ultrasound, for my level 1 RChem.
But for the MSc?
For MSc, not really. I don't think so. I mean, for my RChem ACP portfolio, so if I've got central lines in or out lines or tube someone, I've got a logbook, and for my ultrasound, it's all been signed off. So it's the same for the HSTs and the ACCS trainees, just keep all the evidence.
Yeah, but there's no logbook requirement for the MSc, so we don't log the procedures there, but we know that ultrasound is a really core part of people's practice these days, and one of the reasons for the summer school is to give those people who don't work in systems or don't normally get access to ultrasound training, access to that specifically, because that can be harder to get for the non-medical trainees in the UK, certainly. Another question is about whether there's opportunities for students to have placements or simulation with London Air Ambulance or the military teams. We don't organise that directly as part of the MSc, but the joy of the MSc is that you'll meet these people who work in all these different systems, and then you'll make these contacts and you can sweeten them up and try and work out how you can get those placements from there. So you have that real opportunity through the networking part of the MSc to do that, but it's not something that we offer as part of the MSc. That would take a whole different level of organisation at this stage. I know there's been a few questions about tuition fees and things, and Chris has been busy answering those on the Q&A, I believe. Is this MSc programme the equivalent of FRCEM, which is the Fellowship of the Royal College of Emergency Medicine? I don't know if that attendee is in the UK or is abroad. This does not give you an equivalency for it. You have to do the FRCEM if you want to be working and if you want to progress up to consultant level in the UK. What I would say is actually this MSc takes your understanding of the topic a lot further. You know, the FRCEM, as somebody who's sat and survived it, is superficial over a large number of areas. And what we do here is we really take a deep dive into core areas that we need to explore. So actually, it's not just accepting this is what you do about fluid resuscitation. It's like, why do we do this fluid resuscitation? What was the evidence behind it? What were the key original papers? What's the latest evidence? People will bring the last paper that was published and we'll dissect it and go through it in the tutorials. So you'll be really up to date and far more up to date. And then you would be able to actually challenge your employers and say, have we actually really looked at this with a critical eye? And actually, is this how we should be acting? And this is why we say we want to create the leaders of emergency medicine, because we want to give you that ability to really know the knowledge and understand the science and the pathophysiology at a level that you haven't done ever, not even medical school, and within those sort of, but very targeted towards your areas of interest of resuscitation, of key emergency presentations, such as anaphylaxis or whatever else it might be. And so you can really get down to the nitty gritty, and you can draw on the expertise of Paul, who's a cardiologist who sits here, or somebody who's a snakebite expert, or we have Steve Bland, who is the head of CBRN for the UK government, and he teaches a CBRN module. So if you want to know anything about CBRN, he is the man who's written everything and understands all of it, and you get access to that through this MSc programme. There's a couple of questions about summer schools, whether it'll have an extra fee or be included, because we were going to run it this year and we had to cancel it because of COVID, and we haven't, and we're hoping to run it next year for the first time. And as of next year, it's not going to be included in the fees, but it is going to be heavily subsidised, and we're doing everything to keep it as minimal as possible. We're hoping to build in the future a business case, so it might be included as part of the fees. But that's a balance, obviously, for people who are living in the UK or who are easily accessible to get to the UK versus those who it's harder to travel here. Somebody's asking about further information about what the topics are covered within each of the modules, because they're quite broad from the module titles. I don't know what granular of detail there is, Chris, available on the website for each module.
There used to be a taster module as well, or a taster lecture. Is that still something that happens, Chris? Does that still exist? Do you know? Sorry.
I'll unmute myself if that helps. I believe so. It is on QM+. I can find the link to it now and pop it in the chat. So bear with me.
Yeah, that's quite nice. And is there an overall list of all the? I mean, it's basically 8 modules, eight weeks per module, two or three or maybe 4 lectures per week. So it's a long list, but we do have a list of the modules, don't we, somewhere? But we don't usually make that available. We leave it as a nice surprise when you start, but it's quite a long list of topics.
There's another question, I can't remember the answer, Chris. What's the minimum number of tutorials that you have to attend live? I'll let you.
It doesn't really work like that. So it's about engagement, and engagement is either attending the tutorial itself or providing apologies. And that's quite straightforward because I set up an attendance survey for each module. So at the beginning, you can kind of have a look at your diary and see what you're going to be able to attend. And I always put in the maybe option. And basically what the maybe option does, it covers you whether you can or can't attend. Because if you end up not being there when I go through and take the attendance, you'll get a tick for that, as it were, because you've engaged with kind of the process, as it were. So it's not too arduous.
I'm afraid that we do not offer a residency in emergency medicine. Great. Any other questions?
I was
Yes,
going to say,
Paul.
however, those resus fellowships do come up reasonably frequently, don't they? I think there's a plan to continue that program. So there are the 3 jobs in London that are affiliated with the MSc. Is that right? Is it 3 posts? I can't remember how many we've got, but those jobs do come up. You just got to keep your eyes peeled for them in the UK literature. But we don't offer a formal residency program, unfortunately. But those particular roles do come up.
And there's a lot of other posts coming up across London, trauma fellowships and years out of training and things like that. So that they are available too. Right. Thank you very much, everybody. We seem to have exhausted the questions, I think, which is great. And we really appreciate your time this evening and coming to join us. You have got details of how to contact us if you've got further questions at all. But the deadline for applications for this year is the 31st of August. But then we will be running again from next year too. So obviously it's quite a short time frame in order to organise yourself around this time. But you can show your expression of interest if that is what you have, and we can keep you up to date with anything that goes forward. This webinar is going to be made beautiful by our wonderful team who do all our video recording and things for us, and then it shall be made available freely so you can show it to your friends and any colleagues and forward it on, and we will be back on the Twitter. If you do not follow us already on Twitter, then please do. I'm going to just check I get the Twitter handle right, because otherwise you'll be following Prof Harris, who's just as interesting. But we are at Resus Masters. It's a capital R and a capital M. And we would love to hear from you on that now as well. If you've got anything else you want to ask, we'll be monitoring that for the rest of the evening and the rest of the week. So do ask it there. And other than that, thank you very much to James for joining us today. Thank you, Paul. Glad you didn't get called away. We've missed him. He's gone back to save somebody in Qatar. And thank you, Chris, for being here and answering all the technical questions that none of the rest of us know. And to Mishimi for organising it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well done, Libby.
Bye.
Bye-bye.